Oh, hey there. How you doing today? Beautiful day outside. It's nice and warm. And it won't be long till planting season's upon us. I know we're looking for items to build and sell. And I've got something to make for my fiance. I've got an herb garden I was going to make for her. So we'll kill two birds with one stone today, and you can build this herb garden with me. All right, guys. Make sure you let me know in the comments how you're doing. I really do want to know. Okay, for this build, we're going to need three cedar fence pickets, and you're going to need two 8 foot long, either 1x2s or 2x2s. If you do not have either of those on hand and can't get any, you can take a 2x4 and rip it in half and use it. That would be just as appropriate. Now, let's get started cutting. Okay, we're going to need some of your fence pickets cut off at 5.5 inches. You're going to need 6 of them. I have a couple of leftover pieces here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut some of that out of them and see if we can save one of our fence pickets. I've already cut one. If you get one cut, you can use it as a guide and just use it to mark with instead of remeasuring every time. And when you have to move on to cut your one of your big fence pickets, go ahead and cut the dog ear piece off first. I always save my dog ear pieces because I'll just pop a couple of brad nails in them to the back of my push block for my table saw. And it gives you a nice square edge to start out with. And next you're going to need three at 15 inches. If you have a stop block and can set one up, or a clamp that you can clamp onto it or something to just keep repeating the cuts, it will make this quicker. Just make your mark so you know where to cut. After you have your mark made, put your pencil on your mark, bring your square up to your pencil, and draw your line. Take your tape measure and check it just to make sure it's at 15 inches. Set it up and make your cut. Check your measurement, 15 inches. Alright, make two more duplicate cuts. And I'll see you after we get these duplicate cuts made. Okay guys, now that we've got those cut, we need six 16-inch long pieces of cedar fence picket. So you know how to lay it out and cut it. If you have a way to set up a stop block, if you want to, you can do that, and that will make things quicker and easier. You could really batch these things out. You really truly could, I believe. Same drill for your 16-inch pieces. Measure it out. Make your tick mark at 16 inches. Then scribe your line. Make your cut. You need 6 of these. Out of 3 cedar fence pickets, even with the extra pieces that I had, this is what was left over. So you've got enough for another little project there if you need it. So, alright. The next thing you're going to want to do is sand down your rough edges. You can use your sanding block that you made, or if you've got a power sander, you can use it. We're not going to finish this project. It's going to be unfinished, so we're just going to sand the edges. If you want to finish yours, you can sand it down to between 80 and 120 grit, and that should be more than enough to finish it. Okay, now we've got to cut our legs. I only had a little piece of a 1x2, but I happen to have some 2x4s that I already had ripped in half. So that's what we're going to use for the legs for these. Let me figure out where my paper went. Okay. You need 2 cut at 24 inches. Do your layout as you normally would. And then make your cut. Well, guys, we got our 2 24-inch legs cut for the back. Now it's time to do our front legs. To do our front legs, first we're going to set our saw to a 30-degree miter. Lock it in place. You're just going to cut this very end off first so that you will have a starting point. And if you're cutting a 1x2 instead of a 2x2 or a 2x4 ripped in half, make sure you cut across you want your miter across the wide side, the 2-inch side. Okay, now you're going to want to cut down to 27 3/4 from long to short. You're going to want your miters to be parallel, kind of like the shape of Tennessee. So this way you don't have to flip your board over or nothing. Just put your tape measure on your short point and measure it out to 27 3/4. Make you a line right there on that mark. And that's where your blade should touch, right there at the back. And measure it from long point to short point, and see if you got it. And then do an exact duplicate on the next side, on the next leg. You're going to need one more piece of your 1x2 or 2x2 or whatever you are using. Set your saw back to 0. Lock it down. And you're going to want 16 inches. I'll use the 1x2 because this is just a brace between the two back legs. So, since I have a little bit of this, I will use it. Make your mark, lay it out, and cut. Okay, go sand down your rough edges, and now we'll assemble. Okay, for assembly, first we're going to assemble the boxes. We'll put all the legs and supports over here out of the way for now. We'll move these over to the stool where we can get to them easy enough. Your 15-inch pieces are your bottoms. So take one of those. Make sure there's not a whole lot of dust on your workbench. Just take your paintbrush and wipe it off like that. Brush it off. Keep you a shop towel close by. Because to put this together, you can use screws, you can use glue. I'm going to use some Titebond 3 and then my brad nailer. I think we'll use some 1-inch brads because these fence pickets are only about ½ an inch thick. So, yep, that'll be just fine. Set your bottom down. Then you're going to take an end and put it on each end, like so. Hold it up there to get a look and see what it looks like. Some of your fence pickets may be a little bit bowed. Mine was. You know, if you've got some plastic, you might want to cover your bench because you might get some glue on it. Okay, there we go. Now that that's taken care of, we'll get some glue on it. I'll use the Titebond 3, which I'm about out of, so I'll need to get some more. As you're doing this, I'm going to use brad nails. You don't have to. You could probably just screw it in place if you wanted, but and the easiest way to nail this together is probably going to be get you one of your other bottoms and set it up so that it holds it kind of even as you're popping a brad in it, like so. Just try to be careful and not run it all the way out the side, which I am bad for doing. Okay, that one went in the right place. So now for this side, make sure that glue's got plenty of grip. Okay. There we go. Now do the same for the other end. Rub that on there a little bit. Try to get it to stay some. Slide your little bottom from one of your other ones over there to hold it kind of in place. You get your brad popped in it. Grab your brad nailer, pop one in. Make sure you didn't miss. Then go to the other side. Make sure you're square and flush. And do it again. Here, I don't know if you guys can even see that or not. I apologize. And then you're going to go to shoot one in the middle. There we go. That's got both ends on. That makes it time for the sides, the 16-inch pieces. They should be just about exactly even. You might have to trim a little bit depending on the actual width of your end pieces. Some of them are not exactly 5.5 inches, but most are. Just line them up there and give them a look over. See how they look. Oh, that was a side piece or a bottom piece. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Now we'll flip this over to this side. We'll run some glue along it like this. Boy, I am just about out of time on 3. Okay. If you have a bow in your wood, make sure it faces inward. That way it kind of pulls it out as the glue dries and the brads go in. Try to line everything up nice and pretty, like so. Go ahead and pop your brads in one end here. I apologize, I am a little bit shaky today. I do not know why. Okay, now flip it around to the other end. Don't forget to stick one in the middle over here too. That way it helps that bow out some. Now pop some along the bottom here. Now do the same for the other side. This is going to be a little bit off on my video because of that one worked fence picket, but since this one's not a sale, this one's a gift, I think that'll be okay. I doubt anybody will even really notice it. You're going to lay that side on. Rub it around a little bit, try to get it in place. And then drive your brads in. Just the same. Flip it around the other end and do it again. Yeah, that bow's really got this out of whack. And if you want to, you can clamp that and let it dry and assemble your other two. If you clamp it, it'll help pull the bow out while the glue dries. I'll go ahead and assemble the other two boxes and we'll come right back. Boy, do not forget to put your brads along the bottom of that last side. I forgot to do it as I was going through the video. Alright, now we got all three boxes assembled. The next thing we're going to want to do is drill a few drain holes in the bottom of them. So get you a drill bit. They don't have to be real big drain holes because they're not real big boxes. Maybe 3/8 would be good enough. And just drill 2, maybe 3 along the bottom. After you drill your holes, you might want to take some sandpaper and smooth off the bottom of that a little bit if it busted through. But that's what your drain holes are going to look like. Make sure you do that to all three boxes. Okay, now it's time to mount the first box to the back legs, the ones without the miter cut on them. You're just going to run some screws from the inside to the leg. On each side, you're going to want to drill you a small pilot hole first, that way nothing don't split, hopefully. Let's see here. I can get you guys a little bit better angled here. You want everything to be nice and flush with the top and the back, and then put you a pilot hole in it. Since I'm using a ripped 2x4 for legs instead of a 1x2, I'm going to use 1.5" screws. That should be more than enough. And do the same thing to the other side. Let's see if you can make sure you can get a look there and see. Do the same to the other side. After you get the first screw in both legs, you're going to put another one in closer to the bottom of the box. Drill your pilot hole, put your screw in just like you did before on both sides. Now that we have the box attached to the back legs, we'll take our 16" cross piece, and it's going to go 6 inches up from the bottom. So get your tape measure and measure up 6 inches. Make you a little mark, just so you'll know where the 6-inch mark is going to be. And try to center it up on that mark the best that you can. This is just a cross support to keep, like a kind of like a spreader on a stool or a table leg. You're going to need slightly longer screws if you used a 2x4. If you didn't, you could probably get away with 1.25" screws. But you can always lay your screws across the board and see how far they're going to go in. I have 2.5" screws. That's what I'll be using since this was a ripped 2x4. There, I move things over here so maybe you can see a little bit easier what I'm doing. But it's just like putting any screws in anything else. Drill you a small pilot hole. And make sure you're lined up about midways at your 6-inch mark. After you drill your pilot hole, put your screw in. And then go to the other side. Repeat the process on side number 2. Okay, now we have the cross pieces on. We're going to put the back legs on, or the front legs on, excuse me, in a similar manner to how we did the back legs, only these have to go on so that they are flush with the top of this. That way it gives you an angle to go down, if you see what I'm saying. You'll get it in place and then clamp it. If you have to, use you a little piece of wood, a little cut off piece of wood to hold it in place as you're clamping it to try to keep it flush with your other leg. And then you're going to drill and screw it into place from the inside of the box. You'll need to screw it in 2 places. Around about here and about where my clamp's at. So drill your pilot holes and put your screws in. After you get your first screw in, you will have to re-clamp it. I had to get a different clamp to reach all the way across it. In reality, you could probably flip it up on its side and not have to use clamps at all, but this just seemed easier for filming purposes. So then make sure you put your Next pilot hole and screw right about here at the top so it'll stay in place. After you get that front leg attached, flip it over and do the same to the other side. Okay, after you get that done, set it up, make sure it sets level, don't bounce around. If it does bounce around and you have to adjust the legs, do so, but you should be okay. It's pretty stable. Next thing we're going to do is mount the next two boxes. I'll show you how. Next step will be adding the other two boxes. I would go through my scrap wood pile or cut me out a couple of spacers if you only have one person. These are about 2 inches. That will make life easier on you altogether. First thing you're going to do is flip this upside down. And you're going to lay off these spacers. And you're going to take your box. And whichever side you want it to be your front, you're going to move it towards the front. And you're going to set it down in there on top of those spacers so that it's nice and level and even. You're going to want it sticking out a little bit. I would say about 3.5 to 4 inches from the back of your top one to the back of your second one would be about the ideal spacing for this. Make sure it's setting level with the spacers, and make sure the spacers are setting level. Get you a clamp and clamp it in there. I happen to have a clamp about the right size to go across both legs, but if you don't, you can clamp it, small clamp on each side. Okay, now turn it back over and see what it looks like. And that looks about like what you want right there. Here, I'll take you over so you can get a better look. Make sure everything's even. Drill you a pilot hole and put your screws in. With your pilot hole, you're going to want two lined up with this front leg here. And that's the best way to do it, two, so that it'll set even. Now that your pilot holes are drilled, put your screws in. Be careful if you slip, because you might knock your box out of level. If you want to leave your spacers in there, you can, just to try to make sure it's even, but it'll be harder to get in to put your screws in. Okay, after you get that done, walk over and have a look, make sure everything looks good, and repeat the process for the third box. Alright guys, there we have it. I'll take you guys in for a closer look. There you have it. This is my rustic cedar 3-tiered herb garden. It cost about $12 worth of wood, I would guess. Maybe a little bit less. You could also label it as a cedar planter or a child planter or a child's flower garden, or because of its height, get them started out young. I would have no problem putting about $45 on this. This is a little bit different than your typical cedar planter you see around springtime, so I think these might sell pretty good. And you can finish these up really, really nice. I'm going to leave this one rustic because it's a gift for my fiance and I want it to match our raised garden beds outside. Build time, about 30 to 45 minutes, and this was a prototype. After a prototype, builds always go faster. I would say that you could probably set up production process and get these batched out in about 20 minutes apiece. And I do believe there would be a market for these. These could go perfect at somebody's front door or along their walkway or even out in their yard next to the rest of their raised garden bed. First, I'm sure this one's probably going to go. But I hope you liked the video and enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you found any usefulness here, make sure you subscribe to my channel. There'll be plenty more to come. And make sure you let me know in the comments what you think about this. I really do like it. It's really nice. It came out a lot better than I was expecting it to. But yeah, that would finish up real pretty. Alright guys, you guys have a great day. I will see you next time.